Please join me. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la la.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome. I was just thinking something that I said, I probably shouldn't say this. And then the cantor just said, I need to go get something that wasn't put out here. So I'm going to say it. The last time I saw a room divided this way was I was asked to give an invocation at the State Assembly in Madison. And thanks, Lee. Find Richard, because he's looking for it. And I stood up there, and the way it works in legislative bodies, people sit together by party, often. And over here were the Republicans, and here were the Democrats, and there was no possible way to confuse one group for the other. That's all I'm going to say in terms of dress, in terms of hair length, in terms of it was an extraordinary. We're ready to go. Extraordinary thing. We're so glad you're here tonight. I can't remember the last time we had a Friday night that was actually sunny, which I don't know how many of you got out today, but just glorious. Is it going to last over the weekend? Do we know? One day at a time? At least, Kate, we're not doing 1 hour at a time. We are at that point in this year, after the daylight saving time change, where we defer the lighting of Shabbat candles, which usually occurs at the beginning of the service, to the end of the service. And at that time, if we time it right, the sun will just be setting over the trees. And with the sunset will become the official beginning of Shabbat. This service is called Kabbalat Shabbat, the receiving of Shabbat, and it is a way of us to prepare for and get ready for the arrival of the Sabbath. If you would turn to page 128, you will find there a song called Yedid Nefesh, a prayer that literally means soul friend and speaks of a close relationship with God.
Yedid nefesh av harachaman, av harachaman, meshoch avdecha משוכבתך אל רצונך, אל רצונך. ירוץ עבדך כמו אייל, ישתחווה אל מולד עריך. ידיד נפש אב הרחמן, אב הרחמן. משוכבתך אל רצונך, אל רצונך.
We're going to continue on page 138 with the singing of Lecha Dodi. Before we do, I want to clarify that my comment comparing us tonight to the legislative chamber for the assembly in Madison only had to do with the kind of split nature. It was not a comment on hair length or dress or anything like that. So lest anybody, I hear myself occasionally and I think, what is he talking about? On page 138, Lecha Dodi, this is a hymn that was written in the 16th century in the land of Israel in a town called Tzfat, which is perched on top of a mountain overlooking the Sea of Galilee in one direction, and on a very clear day, you can see almost to the coast of the Mediterranean. It talks about receiving the Sabbath as one would receive a bride walking down to the wedding canopy for a marriage. We're going to, as we customarily do, sing the first, second, fifth, and ninth stanzas. And when we get to the ninth stanza, if you're comfortable doing so, please join us in rising and facing the door so that as we sing that last stanza, which is a little slower than the rest, we will be able to symbolically welcome the spirit of Shabbat.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Ishmianu el hayuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad, B'shemo tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor habracha merosh mikedem nesucha. Sof maaseh b'machshava tchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 5, Hitoreri, Hitoreri, ki va'orech kumi uri, 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 shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nikla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela.
Please rise.
Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam besimcha u'tzola לחדותי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה לחדותי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please remain standing as we turn to page 144, and the cantor leads us through the Chatzi Kaddish, the Reader's Kaddish, somewhat of a portal between this earlier section, introductory section of the service, into its main body.
יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, פגלה פגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמיה, יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ותרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן.
Page 146.
Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Let's continue praying together at the top of page 149. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. Page 150.
Ahavat olam bet Yisrael, amecha ahavta, amecha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, otanu limadeta. Alekein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochveinu, ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו באורך ימינו, ובהם נקה יומם ולילה, נקה יומם ולילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
Please be seated. We continue on page 154 together.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך, בכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
We continue together at the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there,
except by joining hands and marching together.
158.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורת אילות אוסף אלה, נורת אילות אוסף אלה, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה עליינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פר אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We continue on page 160 with the evening prayer Hashkivenu. God, lay us down to sleep and wake us up tomorrow to a world of peace. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Please join us.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, leshalom. Vehamidenu malkeinu lechayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with the morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
On page 164, we've reached the central portion of the service. It says at the top of the page, Tefillah, which means prayer. And this is the set of prayers par excellence. The prayer on page 164 is actually a preparatory prayer, if you will, a prayer to pray that we might be able to pray. So it's called the kavanah in Hebrew, which means intention. And it's an opportunity for us to warm up and get ready for the Amidah, the section that follows on page 166. Please rise.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah. Ha'el hagadol hagibor v'hanora, El Elyon, gomer chasadim tovim, ve'konei hakol, ve'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot, u'mevii geula livnei bneihem, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר, מושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. And let's continue together at the top, of page 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy
and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
And in the middle of 175 together. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and to do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. And together at the top of 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. And we sing together a song for peace. Shalom Rav on 178.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amecha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel and all people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, and varech et amo Yisrael, bashalom. and we'll continue our prayers silently. Ratzon imrei fi, Yehul ratzon imrei fi, V'egyon libi lefanecha, Adonai tzuri v'goali. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditations of my heart be acceptable before you. O God, my rock and my redeemer. Oseh shalom b'meromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, ve'imru,
On page 371, you will find our prayer for healing. We customarily sing Misha Berach, asking for a refuah shlema, a complete healing for our friends and family who we know could use some. It's interesting, the prayer actually talks about physical healing and spiritual healing. And it's, I think, even though it's a prayer that's 2,000 years old, it's quite insightful in understanding that our spiritual selves and our physical selves are really one and the same and very much tied up together. And so if one is physically not well, one can often then be also feeling not as to one's best spiritually. But it works the other way too, that sometimes the physical and the spiritual can build each other up and provide healing in that fashion. We think especially of this week of all of the hostages in Gaza, those who have been wounded in the fighting, both in Gaza and in Israel, Lucy Adams, Sarah bat Vesi Veben, Rivka Fegi bat Phyllis, Sapira bat Yehudit, Emily Baer, Simcha Meir ben Esther Malka, Nachma ben Bailey, Moshe ben Chaya Sarah, Yosef ben Lily Venatan, Yosef Carrasco, Ebby Clark, Katie Peltz Davis, Marcia Fenson, Roz Flegel, Carol Fletcher, Leonore Friedman, Lisa Frolkis, Kai Michelef Gardner, Susie Garrison, Marianne Gehrig, Bonnie Gibson, David Goldenholtz, Lily Gorin, Ann Haas, Mitzi Holman, Jennifer Houston, Michelle Jacoby, Pat Kessler, Rory Langlois, Moishe Kaufman, Deborah Lazovic, Margaret Lowe, Jen Levy, Jody Lichtenstein, Jim McDermott, Karen McDermott, the members of our sister congregation in Nahariya, Israel, Emet V'Shalom, who are very close to the Lebanese border, Kathy Manchero, Donald Metzke, Michael Mikalski, Bob Neubauer, Bill Nikud, Bob Ratke, Mosi Ramirez, Bill Ross, Martha Ross, and Micah Ross, Jeff Roth, Stella Schneider, Gary Siegel, Herb Sedlin, Bobby Shafton, Gary Sobel, that's not right, Ricky Spiegel, Will Thompson, Deidre Tischberg, Frina Toby, Jen Volker, and Leo Weinschall, along with Ken Wexler, Paige Seiler, and, Peter Goldberg, and Jessica Edwardson. If there are others of whom you're aware who could use our blessings and our prayers for their health and healing, I ask you to please hold them close to you in your heart as together on page 371 we pray.
Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Sheperach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
The question of evil and its origin, the question of why good people suffer and why sometimes the evil prosper, as it's known in Greek, referred to in Greek as the theodicy question, is something that has been around since the beginning of time. It's locus classicus, the best place to find its first example in our Bible is in the story of Job, a man who enjoys many blessings in life and then one by one loses every one of them and is left without friends, family, destitute. At one point in the story, Job lies on his bed of pain as three friends try to convince him that ultimately he must be responsible for all that has befallen him. I won't go on to unpack everything that is going on behind the scenes and up in heaven, but suffice to say, he really isn't responsible for what is happening to him. He's part of a test that is going on elsewhere. The book of Job recounts, one day as his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their eldest brother, a messenger came to Job and said, the flocks were grazing alongside them when Sabbateans attacked and carried them off and put the boys to the sword. I alone have escaped to tell you. That person was still speaking when another came in and said, God's fire fell from heaven, took hold of the sheep and the boys and burned them up. I alone have escaped to tell you. This one was still speaking when another came in and said, an armed formation of 3 columns made a raid on the camels and carried them off and put the boys to the sword. I alone have escaped to tell you. And this one was still speaking when another came in and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their eldest brother, when suddenly a mighty wind came from the wilderness. It struck the four corners of your house, of the house, so that it collapsed upon the young people, and they died. I alone have escaped to tell you. Naomi Gretz, who is the mother of Israeli Rabbi Ariella Gretz Bartuv, who was for many years the rabbi of that congregation in Nahariya that we've paired with for close to 30 years. Many of you know her and have met her. She teaches a class online, and this past week she read these verses. She's been teaching Job since October. And when she got to these verses, she had a frightening realization. She said to herself, this is what happened on October 7th. She pictured the Nova all-night music festival where more than 400 young people were murdered, more than 40 kidnapped. Naomi saw the echo of Job's experience at that music festival. Children were put to the sword, shot down. Young people died when terrorists descended from on high on hang gliders and from the sea with scuba gear. Homes and peoples were burned by the wrath of Hamas. And all this took place on the day when Job's children were celebrating together and their animals were peacefully grazing in the meadows. As Nova was an echo, and October 7th, an echo of Job's experience, this week's Torah portion called Shmini is an echo of the two of them. Shmini itself in Hebrew means eighth, and it refers to the final day of an 8-day-long dedication ceremony for the Mishkan, also known as the Tabernacle, or the small portable desert sanctuary God told the people to build so that, as God put it, I may dwell among you. This 8th-day festival is marked by tragedy. As the people celebrated the completion of the Mishkan, the Torah describes what happened next. Now Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, each took his fire pan, put fire in it, and laid incense upon it. And they offered before God alien fire, which had not been enjoined upon them. And fire came forth from God and consumed them. Thus they died at the instance of God. Then Moses said to Aaron, I guess this is what God meant when God said, through those nearest to me, I will show myself holy. And Aaron was silent. It is an arresting scene. In response to this inexplicable tragedy, many commentaries have tried to address questions such as, what exactly is alien fire? What prompted Nadav and Avihu to do what they did, whatever it was? What does it mean to die at the instance of God? And how does God show the divine self to be holy by killing those closest to the divine? For the rabbis of old, the element of caprice, they were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, was not an acceptable answer. They concluded that the victims had brought their fate upon themselves. One line of interpretation posits that Nadav and Avihu were caught up in the moment of celebration and went one step too far in the ecstatic worship, and while playing with fire, got burnt in the process. The Torah continues to say, right after this scene of Nadav and Avihu dying, and God spoke to Aaron, saying, drink no wine or other intoxicant, you or your sons, when you enter the tent of meeting, that you may not die. This is a law for all time throughout the ages. Here began another area of explanation. Perhaps the Torah means for us to understand that Nadav and Avihu showed up drunk, and that's why they acted inappropriately. But there's a plethora of reasons the rabbis came up with 2,000 years ago mostly because there really was no obvious reason. It really did seem to be an inexplicable tragedy. Some of these explanations include, number one, because they had gotten drunk beforehand. Number two, because while they were officiating before the ark, they were not wearing the prescribed number of garments. Priests had to wear all sorts of a very special uniform when they were doing the things that they did. Think of, showing up to a formal affair in shorts, something along those lines. Number three, because they entered the sanctuary without washing their hands and feet. Number four, because they had no children. Number five, which I think is really number four, because they were arrogant. They couldn't find any women good enough for them to marry. And number six, the sons of Aaron died on account of their having given legal decisions in the presence of Moses, their master. Number seven, because they had not coordinated their actions with each other, but acted independently. And number eight, which I think is arguably the clincher, as Moses and Aaron walked ahead, Nadav and Avihu were walking behind. They were saying to each other, "When will these two old men die already, and when will we get to do their jobs?" Rabbi Yudan said in the name of Rabbi Avihu, "They said it to one another with their mouths." Rabbi Pinchas said, "They contemplated it in their hearts." Rabbi Berechia said, "The Holy One of Blessing, God, said to them," quote, quoting, of course, God gets to quote Proverbs, "Do not glory in tomorrow. Many young donkeys have died, and their hides have been turned into saddle packs and placed on their mother's back. As the Midrash says, sometimes children die while their parents are still alive." There's another completely different avenue of interpretation that says actually it was Aaron who was being punished by God for his sin of organizing the building of the golden calf. But surely his sons would not be punished for the sins of their father. Even in a well-known midrash about the son's mother, Elisheva, it's implied because of her vanity, her high position, that she had been brought down to earth and suffer. Elisheva bat Aminadav did not rejoice in the world when she saw the 5 crowns attained by her relatives. Her brother-in-law Moses was king, her brother Nachshon a prince, her husband Aaron was the high priest, her 2 sons Nadav and Avihu were 2 deputy priests, her grandson Pinchas was anointed for war. When her sons entered to sacrifice and were burned, her joy was transformed into mourning. Now, interestingly enough, and perhaps we could expect this, when modern women try to understand these texts, they do not demonize the sons. Ellen Frankel uses the voice of Bruria from the Talmud, whose sons were also taken suddenly ill and died. Bruria tells the story in the Talmud. "Like Elisheva, I too returned 2 sons to God. And like her, I never understood why they were taken from me. One Shabbat, when my husband Meir went to the study house, my boys were suddenly stricken with fever and died. When Meir returned, just before dark, I did not wish to disturb his Sabbath. So when he asked for the boys, I told him that they were at play. After the Havdalah ceremony marking the end of Shabbat that evening, I asked him, 'Meir, I need your counsel. A man once lent me 2 jewels, and now he has come to reclaim them. Must I give them back?' 'Of course,' Meir replied. 'A pledge must be returned to its rightful owner.' Then I took him to the boys' room where they lay lifeless on their beds. 'God has given and God has taken away,' I cried, my heart broken. Blessed be the name of God." It's no coincidence that those words, Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach, are first found in the Bible in the book of Job. It's what he says. But she's also channeling Aaron, who kept silent in his pain because it was expected of him to keep the show going on. And here is how Sherry Mandel, a modern Israeli woman, reacted to the unexplainable, horrific murder of her son, not during the past month of October, before that. Mourning my son has similarities to labor. The contractions of pain rush through my body like a knot that is tied tighter and tighter so that I am unable to breathe, dead along with my son. My womb becomes a grave. I feel the pain of him in my belly, a pressure bearing down on me. It will always be inside of me. And though I hope and pray that one day I will not be as great with pain as I am now, I know the pain will never leave me. The tragedy, of course, is that today, Nadav and Avihu's mother could be named Fatima. She could be a Palestinian mother in Gaza whose young son has died in a war in which he really had no standing. The difference is today, we don't assume that those who die tragically are responsible for their fate. Some are, but some are not. We see that sometimes the good suffer and the evil prosper. Innocent civilians have been dying through no fault of their own. Many of their families in Gaza are loudly cursing the leaders of Hamas, more so than even cursing the Israelis. There is more than enough blame to go around. Or to put it differently, as 60s folk singer Phil Oakes once sang, it's always the old who lead us to the war. It's always the young who fall. May the coming days see the weakening of Hamas, the release of the hostages, the rebuilding of Gaza, and the start of an honest process to ensure for all the peoples of the region a just and lasting peace. Amen. In just a moment, we're going to start the conclusion of the service with the singing of Aleinu, which you can find on page 586. We'll then have a moment for the Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish prayer, some announcements from a representative of the Board of Trustees of the congregation, and then the customary prayers for the lighting of Shabbat candles and over Sabbath wine and bread as well. As you can see, well, we probably have about 6 minutes before the sun peaks behind those trees, and those of us standing up here will be able to see again. But for now, we get to turn around and face the ark. As you rise, and on page 586, we join together in the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
On page 598, you can find the Kadisha Tome, the Mourner's Kaddish. We think especially this Shabbat of Nancy Osterman and David Hested, both of whom were buried just this past week. We remember Gary Sobel, who, we remember those who died during the past month who have members of our congregation saying Kaddish for them, and this is the year following the death. Gary Sobel, and we think of two Israeli soldiers who fell in battle this week, Sivan Weil and Nadav Cohen. We think also of those who have members of our congregation saying Kaddish for them in this year following the death: Hank Borkovitz, Jonathan Frank, Stan Aronoff, Dick Kuhn, Yehuda Yanai, Bill Fox, Marcia Reese, Maxine Cohn, Dr. Joseph Bear Marcus, Ron Sinclair, Margot Hirsch, Jim Stillman, James Karlowitz, John Labotsky, Kermit Bott, Ruth Lowenstein, Foster Padway, Geraldine Schmidman, Jack Zevell, Jacqueline Wagner, Doris Gendelman, Harriet Hackman, Marianne Greenebaum, Robert Sanderson, Shirley Slomovitz, Ron Abel, Len Loasser, Richard Strauss, and Jim Ansfield. And those whose yahrzeit or yearly anniversary of death falls this week: Ben Alberts, Esther Alberts Golding, Leonard Clapp, Edith Cohen Lerner, Rebecca Dollins, Hyman Friedman, Morris Friedman, Gerald Goldberg, Joan Goldenstein, Ann Hassel, Hutch Keeley Sr., Max Kyatt, Rose Kyatt, Hirsch Larkey, Benjamin Lipschultz, Tessie Luck, David Myers, Edith Polland, Ansel Schmidt, Beatrice Siegel, Don Styler, Sarah Wine, Elaine Wexler Copins, Carol Ann Willems, Natalie Winowich, Nick Winowich, and Pauline Wolfson. If there is anyone here tonight who is mourning the recent passing of a friend or loved one, or who is observing the yahrzeit anniversary of a loved one whose name I didn't mention, I would ask you please to share those names aloud at this time.
Ralph Eckert.
Thanks, Karen. We continue with the Kaddish.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach chiroteh v'yamlich malchuteh, B'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imeru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal Shemei d'Kudusha B'richu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbachata v'nechemata Da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlam haraba min Shemaya V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Amen.
May the source of peace, who makes peace in the highest heavens, teach us how to make peace here on earth. May God share with those in mourning a measure of consolation and comfort with compassion. And together we say, Amen. Please be seated. And this is where I think, who's giving the announcements?
I couldn't put myself on the healing list.
I think we have to say the prayer again. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Alan Mendeloff. I'm representing the Board of Trustees this evening. Tonight's Oneg is sponsored, this is cute, by Alan Mendeloff and Susan Letterman and Lola Mendeloff in honor of Nick and Natalie Winowich. We're grateful for the contributions made this week to our Sinai community in memory of Nanette Berlin, Ann Hassel, Dick Hested, Rose Kyatt, Max Kyatt, Tessie Luck, David Myers, Nancy Osterman, Ansel Schmidt, Bob and Elaine Stogsdill, Donald Styler, Carol Ann Willems, and Natalie Winowich. Please join us for the following upcoming programs. The Women of Sinai Member Appreciation Lunch is Sunday, April 7th at noon at Sinai. Please RSVP to Bobby Rector. Ashieno, the men's spirituality group, meets this Sunday, April 7th, here at Sinai at 8 a.m. Run for Their Lives will be meeting this Sunday, April 7th at 1:30 in Cathedral Square Park. There will be no run this week, only a gathering. Brit Nashim speaker Andrea Vodica, the Community Engagement and Grants Manager with the Hanan Refugees Relief Group, will be meeting Monday, April 8th, 7 p.m. via Zoom. Sinai Brewing Taproom Beer Chat, Thursday, April 11th, 7 to 9, make a note, at the Sahel Ale Works in Grafton. Teacher Appreciation Shabbat Shapitza, Friday, April 12th, 5:15 p.m., with Rockin' Shabbat to follow at 6 p.m. Yaz, which is the young adults at Sinai, is having a pop-up Shabbat this Friday at 6:30 p.m. Location. Thank you. It is on the website. Itsy Bitsy Sinai, this Sunday, April 14th, 10:15 a.m. in the Sinai Itsy Bitsy room. TASWI.
Turkish American Society of Wisconsin.
I just wanted to see if he knew. Okay. Potluck lunch, Sunday, April 14th, 12 to 1:30. The Social Justice meeting, committee meeting, Monday, April 15th, 6 p.m. here at Sinai. Second night Passover Seder at Sinai, Tuesday, April 23rd, 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. Please RSVP by Tuesday, April 16th. Please refer to the Tuesday and Friday Sinai e-News for the latest Sinai programming, registration information, live stream, and Zoom links. Shabbat Shalom.
I don't know if Alan mentioned, but he is the president of the board of trustees of the congregation. And he is the first person in a long time who, at the end of his term, which is coming in a month, has been reduced to using a cane. This does not happen to every president of the congregation. Oh my. I did want to mention that members of the congregation have been very generous. I asked after October 7th for contributions, which I have sent on to various different not-for-profits in Israel, as well as those trustworthy ones who are helping the refugees in Gaza. After the tragedy of earlier this week with the accidental targeting of a 3-car convoy belonging to World Kitchens, thank you, and Chef Jose Andres. I will send out at the beginning of the week a link that you can make contributions directly to that organization, which is a fabulous organization that has done incredible work in a number of places where people have been suffering around the world. And I think after this past week, deserve some of our attention and care. If you would, join us in the lighting of Shabbat candles on page 120, and please rise.
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Shabbat.
The Friday evening blessing over wine, the Kiddush, is on page 123, and please join us.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom techila lemikrai kodesh, zecher yitziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim. B'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava uv'ratzon, Hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat l'chaim.
And the blessing over challah, the braided loaf. Please join us.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon.
Shabbat Shalom. Before you go, I want to officially welcome the group from Concordia College who is here in the World Religions class, and their professor, whose last name I believe is Kramer, somewhere in between. They've come a number of years in a row, and it's been great to have them. They're going to stay here. The rest of you who go inside for the oneg, please take a moment to introduce yourself to somebody you don't know. This is a multi-variegated crowd tonight, and I hope you all get a chance to introduce yourself and meet somebody you haven't met from the congregation. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.